This is Emanuel Williams, Chairman and CEO of EDW Group and Renaissance Global Media, here with Daniel Lang, the Economic Development Director for the City of Flowood. Thank you so much, Daniel, for having a conversation with me today.
Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. So who is Daniel Lang?
I'm just a short, freckly guy that tries to make people's days better. But live in Flowood, love Flowood, grew up in Jackson, and just trying to make Flowood, Mississippi, the metro area, a better place.
So how are you trying to make Flowood a better place? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
So there are a few factors. A couple are quality of life,
Okay.
making sure that the families that come to Flowood, that live in Flowood, that in the surrounding areas of Flowood can come and have an enjoyable experience in Flowood, where they can shop, eat, restaurants, retail, work. That there's a quality of life here that's kind of unmatched in other areas of the state. And another part of that is jobs. Really want to create jobs that have a high impact in society, that creates a stronger tax base for those. So really focusing on those two key elements. And there's coupled with workforce and other aspects that go along with those as well, but mainly just the jobs and quality of life.
So what goes into recruiting large employers or small employers or any employers to a city like Flowood?
Yeah, there are a lot of factors. So it just kind of depends on what a company is looking for, whether they're looking for a talented workforce, or whether they're looking for ample land or ample power or a vacant building. It kind of depends on what their checklist is. It also depends on what their market is. If it's a manufacturer, trying to figure out what those needs are, what those high pressing needs are for those manufacturers. But if it's a retail location that's looking for either a restaurant or a place to shop for families to come and shop, then you're looking at what kind of vacant buildings are available. What does the square footage look like? How much are how many vehicles per day are going to be traveling by that business? And getting those demographic numbers so they get a good picture of what Flowood looks like.
So if you were going to, and that's literally your job, to market Flowood, what would you say the city's best assets are?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot of really good assets.
Let's dive in. We've got time.
Yeah. So for us, I think the transportation aspect of it, just the arteries to get to downtown Jackson, the arteries to get to the interstate, but you also have the infrastructure, good roads, and also infrastructure such as
So let me
hotels.
ask you this,
Yeah.
and I don't want to cut you off, but how important is infrastructure into a thriving city and creating economic development?
So we believe that infrastructure is the foundation of a thriving ecosystem. Making sure that our water quality is good, making sure that the roads are good, so people can commute if they need to. It just adds for ample access for people to get to where they need to go faster. So if you need to go to a doctor's appointment, you can get there in a multitude of different ways safely, but also you can go shop if you want to, or go to the parks. And so that infrastructure, we believe, is the foundation, and that not only goes into roads, but it goes into our parks. That goes into the schools, making sure that there's quality education for families and kids. There's just a foundation of infrastructure can be a multitude of different things. It doesn't have to be just water, sewer, things like that. But it really culminates in a lot of different factors, and we want to make sure that that foundation is at a top level so that people can enjoy what Flowood has, and the other amenities can follow after that. We also believe in infrastructure such as public safety. You've probably noticed, and people have noticed, that if you drive up and down Lakeland Drive, you're going to see at least probably one Flowood police officer, if not a multitude of them.
Always.
But that's just for visibility, so that people know, like, all right, you're going to follow the law. You're not going to speed. You're not going to try and shoplift, because there'll be a presence there. It's just a factor that we believe is beneficial for the city long term.
You know, I think law enforcement, especially friends of mine, would tell you that just being visible is such a deterrent to bad crime and creating problems in your city. I remember growing up, there was a guy who would be around. He was on the police force, and he had a really, really, really bad bark. And I would tell folks all the time, he means no harm. That's his way of deterring you from doing anything crazy. And as you mentioned, that's really, really important. Seeing those folks is important to make folks feel safe and also protected and served. So that's really important. So, you're right here near the airport, thriving city. What's the current population now?
So it's kind of fascinating. So this is a sales pitch that I try and work with and make other people understand. But our population in Flowood is only 10,500.
Really?
Yeah. We have over 100,000 people that come through Flowood every single day.
Wow.
Whether they're going to doctor's appointments, they're shopping, they're eating, they're working, whatever it may be, they come to Flowood. So it's more of a destination. We're sitting right here in the Sheraton, and it's a mega conference hub. We host tons of conferences here every single week, multiple days a week. And we're trying to be that destination place for people not only in Mississippi but outside of Mississippi to come in.
So, you take for example the Sheraton. A deal like this, what did that mean to the city of Flowood? And not even I wouldn't even see the city of Flowood in terms of just viable options in the metro area.
It's just it's transformational with the airport being right here, right across the street. But then the opportunity for business leaders to gather. They can either play golf. If they want to have a spa, they can go to the spa on the second floor. It's just a multitude of opportunities for whether it's business leaders, just companies in general, to do something different, to do something special for their employees, but also for the public at large to say, I want to do a staycation in Flowood. I don't have to go far, far away. I can have an enjoyable experience, go relax by the pool and travel the lazy river, which is the longest lazy river in the state. And
shameless plug.
Yeah, that's right. But just little fun facts like that. And if you come here for a conference, your spouse can come, your family can come, and it's more of that family atmosphere. So it's been transformational for the community, really putting Flowood on the map for what we can offer. We are working on getting more higher end restaurants out here, just because we don't have that right now. Flowood's just not been known for white tablecloth restaurants, but we're trying to change that. We're trying to show people that people out here will spend money for a nice meal, and especially with the businesses coming, there are opportunities for those higher end restaurants to locate.
I think one thing that's important is that folks in the metro area that I've noticed, they will travel from one end of the metro area to the other if there's good food.
That's right.
And so that's really important. I'm excited. Are there any projects that are in the works now that you can share with us?
Yeah, so we have a couple. So we have over by Hugh Ward, the intersection of Hugh Ward and Lakeland Drive, by Walmart, or the Pinelands is what it's called. There's a multitude of restaurants that have already opened up, such as Freddy's, Small Sliders, others as well. Walk-Ons is actually going to start building in the next couple of months.
Oh, wow.
So Walk-Ons is locating here in Flowood.
Okay.
So that'll be a new restaurant coming in. And Roosters and Basil's just opened up, which has been a great addition to our culinary scene.
Absolutely.
We're working on a few more things. I can't go into details just right now, but we have interest with white tablecloth restaurants that want to come. We're just finalizing those deals.
So what trends are you seeing now in economic development that might be a little different than 20, 30 years ago? And I know you weren't working in economic development 20, 30 years ago, but from folks that have been doing this a little bit longer than you, what do you say the advantages are, but also the disadvantages that you're having to contend with as a current economic development director?
Yeah, so it's a great question. The hot topic today in economic development is workforce development. And how do you train those younger kids, that younger generation, and help them understand that what a manufacturing plant looks like, what it looks like to have an apprenticeship, to learn and work in those environments. So really what Accelerate Mississippi is doing, what we're doing, what Mississippi Development Authority is doing, is getting into those high schools, those elementary schools, middle schools, and teaching those kids, like understanding what their interests are, and then creating a pipeline for them to go into, whether it's welding or whether it's veterinary medicine, whatever it may be, but connecting those dots between the younger generations and what the future careers can look like. That takes a lot of practice, that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort and energy, but we can see the benefits from that. The flip side on that is people outside the state don't understand Mississippi's education system. There's always been that, Mississippi's last in a lot of things, so they're probably last in education too, and which is a shame because we've taken great strides in the past 4 or 5 years to change that narrative, to have extremely high reading and math scores in the 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade, that have really propelled us to showcase to companies, hey, this is what our kids are learning. This is how gifted they are, and this is what kind of the employees that they're going to be in the future. So invest in Mississippi now, and you'll have a pipeline of workforce for a long time.
Wow. I don't know, that should be a marketing campaign right there.
We're trying to, yeah. The whole state's trying to get on board with it and showcase that to others.
So we've talked about the work that you do at the city. How did you end up in economic development?
Oh yeah, it's I feel really fortunate to be where I'm at. It all started with, first of all, growing up in Mississippi in Jackson, I've always had a heart to make Mississippi better, to try and change it for my kids and my grandkids. Not in like a complete 180, but just provide the opportunities for my kids. So if they move off and they go to a Nashville, Atlanta, Dallas, they can remember and they know that they had a great childhood here, that they know that if they have the opportunity to come back to Mississippi, they can raise their family if they choose to do so. But ultimately to provide those working opportunities for my kids so they can come back if they choose to leave, but hopefully they'll stay. But to come back, to stay in Mississippi and then make a difference themselves and have those good jobs, have those good employers here that are ready to hire young talent, that those opportunities are there for my kids. But what started with that is I was an intern at Innovate Mississippi, which is the state angel investment network. Learned a lot about angel investing, entrepreneurship, learning how to go from concept to actual business model to actual business. So I learned a lot in that space. And then I also worked at Mississippi Development Authority on the recruiting side. So recruited companies outside of Mississippi to come to Mississippi, to hear those stories from throughout the country, but also across the world, and really educate those about what Mississippi truly is. That was very impactful, and being in those conversations. And I was young back then. I try to still be young now, but to educate those that don't understand what Mississippi is about.
So what's Mississippi about?
Mississippi, obviously, to me, it's about taking care of one another, hospitality to those that are coming to Mississippi. But honestly, to me, I believe that Mississippi needs to tell her story better. And whether that's history, whether that's what we have going on currently, what our future looks like, we just need to be better storytellers. We're good at telling stories to each other, but how do we tell stories to people that don't know what Mississippi's is?
Exactly.
So we can go and talk to people from Arizona or Oregon or whoever, and say, this is what we have in Mississippi, and then invite them down to understand what our culture is about, what kind of great food we have, what kind of great people we have. Really start changing that narrative and shifting that piece, because people just have this perception of Mississippi that it kind of bothers me at times.
Absolutely.
Just because.
And I've lived elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's bothersome.
So really just changing that narrative and being better storytellers, but then actually getting those people down here. Like, you can tell stories all the time, and that can change people's minds and hearts, but unless you bring them to Mississippi, that's what's really going to motivate them to go tell that story to others.
Wow. I don't know. That's really huge. You mentioned something earlier, and talking about your work in economic development and your desire to really create posterity for your children. One of the main issues that we're dealing with in the state is brain drain. As a younger person who's a professional in economic development, one, what made you stay? And two, what are some things that the city of Flowood has that might be able to keep young people, young professionals, not even just young professionals, young working people who just want to have a good life, have fun, stay in Mississippi?
Yeah, that's a great question. To answer your first one, for me, it came down to opportunity. And I say that in a loose way because different people look at opportunities differently. And for me, the opportunity to stay and help my state, help my community be the best it can be was really motivating.
So could opportunity be translated as innovation?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Creating that change, being that change for others, and really just seeing what the future could look like. And I could go off to another, I could have gone off to another place and learned about, whatever technology or things like that, but we kind of have the world at our fingertips too. And so being able to research, but then also collaborate with those that are outside the state, and then bring that back here from my cell phone, and creating those relationships and understanding that, but still being embedded in the community and trying to facilitate those discussions in your own community. And so for us, for Flowood, we're trying to bring more entertainment options to the city. We have some different projects we're working on to keep those younger generations here.
Anything you can share?
Not right now. It does surround the Sheraton.
Okay.
So we're working on stuff like that. But like we do it in Jackson, we do it in Madison, but like opportunity for green spaces to like go out and like, if you want to listen to a concert or you want to go listen to, bring your kids out and they can go play in the grass while you go eat and fellowship with others. Having more of those opportunities for entertainment purposes, because you and I probably hear all the time, oh, there's nothing to do. Like, what are we gonna do this weekend? There's nothing to do, which depends on what you're looking for, but really tapping into, well, like, let's find something that we can. Exactly.
Options, yeah. I think because it doesn't hurt to travel.
Yeah.
I think traveling enriches the mind and the soul.
Yeah.
But I think there's no shortage of things to do. But I do think that there certainly could be a diversified portfolio of sorts. And so, if you had to paint a picture of everything you needed to make your job easier, what would that look like?
Oh man.
So and I'll help you out.
Okay, thanks.
So that's citizens, that's stakeholders, that's the legislature, that's the congressional delegation. What does everybody working together look like to make Flowood, and not only Flowood, but economic development of the state look like?
So first I would say communication between all parties, having an outline of a win-win-win situation for each person, whether that is congressional, whether that's local, whether that's the citizens, but everybody understanding what the vision is. But then you get the vision in place, but what does the action look like?
Wow.
How do you delegate? Okay, well, like I'm trying to envision something for our West Rankin Parkway that is going to be completed in a couple of years, but you got to start now. How do we get all the parties involved? How do we get our high school, Northwest Rankin High School, and their workforce coordinator connected with like Roger Wicker's delegation and Accelerate Mississippi, and bring everybody at the table to talk about, well, this is what our students need currently. We need more assistance in, I'm making this up, but like technology, because they want to be educated in how technology works in the future. Well, Roger Wicker, just using him for example, he's the chair of Science, Commerce, and Transportation.
Exactly.
So he has capabilities, he has networks in place where he can connect those high schoolers with different people from across the country, and they can be in front of those high schoolers and talk about the technology they're working on.
Exactly.
But then also have Accelerate Mississippi at the table, who's a state workforce arm, and they can say, well, this is a pipeline of how we can get these companies that are working on this technology connected to these high schoolers within the state. So to me, it's about communication with the parties involved that have the legislative power, the citizens communicate what their needs are, what's going on in the community. There's also has to be action at the end of the day. How does that action translate into the results? Whatever the ending result is, whether that's an incredible technology park, or whether that's just an entertainment system in place where we're bringing in great lineups of musical artists or sports teams or whatever it may be. How do we get everybody at the table that align on the same mission, the same values, the same vision, and then translate that into actionable results? That's what I try and envision of not only just Flowood, but just like the metro area as a whole. Because our mayor has a great relationship with Jackson's mayor.
Absolutely.
They talk on a weekly basis. They meet together. It's a great relationship, and they've been friends for years. Because the mayor knew Marilyn was dad as well, and so there's this collaboration between leadership that happens, but also how do you get those people underneath them that move the process along to stay in communication and take action? It sounds easy in like theory.
Oh, it's not.
But it's not. And,
it's not.
So I don't know. It's gathering the right people in place to actually get it done. And I don't want to get like in trouble for this. I shouldn't. But like when Katrina happened and Flowood got hit with storms and a couple of tornadoes and things like that, had some damage. The mayor was like, we got to get our citizens like back and open and like ready to go. And so he just took matters into his own hands and had the fire department, police department go and clear roads and go. And we honestly, we didn't wait for like MDOT or any type of congressional leadership to give us the go ahead. We just had to do it ourselves because we wanted to, and we felt like it was the right thing to do. I say I was not involved in it, but our leadership at the time.
Really young back in 05.
But our leadership at the time was like, no, like we gotta do this. Like we gotta do this because our citizens need it. And so ultimately, it's all about taking care of our citizens, putting our citizens first. Trying to look at Flowood and telling people about like Flowood first. Like, yes, we're selfish beings, but let's think about it. Let's put Flowood first. If you see trash on the side of the road or in the parking lot, like pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like think of Flowood first. Think about your fellow neighbors, your fellow businesses. Put Flowood above yourself, and it'll continue to be a successful community.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I remember doing as a student in the Mayor's Youth Council in Greenville, it was taking part in the Keep Greenville Beautiful.
Yeah.
And just riding through a city and seeing no trash, I mean, just does wonders for having people come back.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important. If there was a market that, of course, we're Mississippi, so we're one of a kind. If there was a market that Flowood, the metro area, could somewhat model after, that you say, hey, it's a southern city, they're doing a really great job, what area would you say that is?
That's a great question. I think there are a couple, but one that would stick out to me would be like around Alpharetta, Georgia.
Really? Okay.
It's very like high end, but like it's a suburb of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clean.
Mm-hmm.
They have tons of activities to do for citizens, and they have a good planning kind of community where they kind of take care of each other. At least from what I've noticed, I would say that's a really good market. Now, we don't meet like their per capita, but it's something that I've been trying to study and talk to their leadership a little bit about, like how does it work. They have a lot more resources at their disposal than we do, but it's something that we can strive for, and we can try and model ourselves after, but have our own Mississippi twist to it.
Absolutely.
To have that soul, to have that culture, that I think sets us apart in a different way. But they've done a great job over there. I think it's something that we can aspire after.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on markets like Birmingham and Nashville?
Birmingham, they've done a good job. They've tapped into those resources. We're looking at like how the city has they put in a lot of different measures, whether it's breweries or other things like that, that really tapped into the history of Birmingham, and so that brings in that culture side. That was another one. I was looking at like Hoover, Vestavia. When you mentioned that, that kind of came to my mind first as well. Was those type of markets? Birmingham being the hub, but then you have those ancillary markets outside that all work and play together. That people will drive, from Hoover to Vestavia or wherever it may be, to go eat and shop. And so that's another one. In Nashville's hard because they have actually they've exploded, and it's kind of crazy.
Astronomically.
Yeah. And I think they've had their challenges of trying to keep up with all the growth. You see that with rents, you see that with transportation. So I would say I would be cautious about Nashville just because they've got all the money coming in, but there's also a few disgruntled residents that are moving away because they're tired of the growth. So there has to be a healthy balance between growing at a healthy rate, but also not shying away from the opportunities that come to you, but managing that in a proactive way.
So, I mean, what does that look like then? Like, how does a city with 10,500 people that's, I think, strategically placed within a metro area, the Jackson metro area to be exact, how does it thrive? You attract new people here, but also keep that kind of hometown down home Mississippi feel. Yeah,
so we've grown 30% over the last 10 years, and that trend is continuing for the next 10 years, next 5 to 10 years. Honestly, I think it's more about like community events, really getting like one thing. This is very small, but that we do on our social media is called the Flowood Friday feature, and that's highlighting locally owned businesses that are still in Flowood that have been around for a long time. They've located and they're locally owned. And yes, it's beautiful to talk about the massive corporations that come in that are great businesses and they contribute to the community. But it's also important to highlight those locally owned businesses that invest back into your community. And so what we try and do is really highlight those, put on Facebook, tell them the story of how long they've been there, where they're located, what they do, and then have pictures or videos to go along with it to really be like, oh yeah, like I remember going to Eslava's Grill and having a delicious dinner. I know Danny really well. He's a neighbor of mine. And tapping into those heartstrings of like, oh, I had a great time there. I had a great experience there. The customer service was unmatched. Y'all should shop local. And so people comment on that. They share it. They like it. There was one business that got over 90,000 views on, and it's a locally owned business. It's small, but people had such a great experience there. It was easy for them to like it, to love it, to share it, to comment on it, and then that got out to more metro area people, and so people in Madison may not know about it, and they're like, oh, I had no idea, and then they would come over and start shopping there, start doing business there. So really, to me, and that was a long answer,
you're fine,
but just also remembering that local side to it, because that's what brings it back to that hometown feel, is knowing those business owners that are your neighbors, or going to shop at that business that you've seen for years but you've never actually gone in, but then you realize like your son and that person's son like were college roommates or something like that, just something random off the wall, like making sure those heartstrings are still being pulled.
I think that's a perfect place to stop. I think my last question though is what's your favorite thing to do in Flowood?
Oh, there's so many things. So I have 3 small kids, 5, 3, and 1.
Wow.
We're all about being outside.
Wow.
We love playing. We love learning new things. One thing that we really, really enjoy is going to our Flowood Nature Park. It's a mile-long nature park. We actually just redid it, redid the surfacing to a track surface, but it's in the woods in the heart of Flowood next to Winter Circle Park, and it has a lake in the middle with fish and turtles. There are trees, squirrels, there are deer. I mean, you're in the heart of Flowood, but you go and you don't hear any car traffic. You don't experience people on bikes. There are no bikes allowed. You just walk and you get out, you breathe fresh air. It's really a good way to get away from the hustle and bustle of Dogwood and all the different distractions going on. So we love doing that. As they're getting older, a project that we're doing is the pickleball courts. It's a complex at Liberty Park next to the
Pickleball
YMCA.
seems to really be on the rise.
It's crazy, yeah.
In the world.
We're building 18 pickleball courts.
Wow.
With a new playground, new restrooms, new parking, the whole everything.
Talking about family and business friendly.
Yes. And so that'll be completed at the end of December, most likely. 18 brand new pickleball courts, and we're going to host tournaments out there. Probably annual tournaments. It could be city tournaments. Looking at professional tournaments coming in, and that could be another tourism factor for Flowood and Mississippi as a whole. But as my kids get older, going out there and be like, hey, let's go play. Let's take mom. I bet I bet my mom and I could beat you. Your mom and I could beat me. All that stuff. Really, like focusing on those aspects of getting outside and just enjoying what Flowood is. Shopping is great, but for us, it's really just being able to go 5 minutes and be in nature, or to go 5 minutes or 10 minutes from our house and being able to play on new pickleball courts, or ride our bike on the multi-purpose trail around Flowood. That's what I love about Flowood.
Wow. I think that's a perfect place to stop. Thank you so much for chatting.
Thanks, Emanuel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.